Hi, my name is Rosie Grant, and I'm the Executive Director for Paterson Education Fund. About 4 years ago, I had the privilege of reading to girls who were participating in the Girl Scout summer program at John F. Kennedy High School. And that was my first engagement with the Girl Scouts. Besides, I always loved Girl Scouts cookies. So I haven't been a Girl Scout, but I am a big supporter of the program because I love what Girl Scouts do for our girls. Black History Month is important to me because the story of our Black ancestors was not told, unfortunately, in the history books. Until we had Black History Month celebration, many thought that Black history belonged to Black people, but Black history in the United States belonged to all of us, and we should all learn and celebrate Black history. The book I'm going to read today is She Was First. It's the Trailblazing Life of Shirley Chisholm. Why I like this book is really summed up in the quote on the back. It says, "I ran because somebody had to do it first. In this country, everybody is supposed to be able to run for president, but that has never really been true." So Shirley was the first Black woman to run for president, and that's why I like this book. I identify with her because she was a little girl from Barbados, which is a Caribbean island, and as it turned out, I'm a little girl from Jamaica, which is also a Caribbean island, so I identify with Shirley in that regard. So She Was First, The Trailblazing Life of Shirley Chisholm was written by Katheryn Russell Brown and illustrated by Eric Velasquez. You are going to love the illustrations in this book. They are so vivid. They put you right in the space of where Shirley was at the time. I love the quotes that they put in the beginning. This one, especially to anyone who's dreamed of doing something that other people say is silly or impossible, go ahead and try. Create your own path and be a trailblazer, just like Shirley Chisholm. On a cold November day in 1924, Shirley Anita St. Hill came into this world. Back then, nobody had an inkling that she would open a door to history. Shirley, the oldest of the Hill girls, was a handful for Mother and Papa. From the time she was little, Shirley liked to be in charge. At 3, she was already leading children twice her age around the neighborhood, telling them where to go and which games to play. "Listen to me," Shirley said, and they did. I like her already. The St. Hill family lived in Brooklyn, New York. Papa was a baker's helper, and Mama was a seamstress and domestic worker. They barely earned enough money to keep food in the cupboards and supper on the table. Mama and Papa made a tough decision. They would send the girls to live with Mother's family on the Caribbean island of Barbados. While the children were away, Papa and Mama would save their money, and Shirley and her sisters would get a taste of country living. So it looks like there's Shirley, and then there are 2 other siblings in the family. In 1928, Shirley and her sisters and mother boarded an ocean liner named Vulcania. After 9 rocky days at sea, they arrived in Barbados. From the port, they rode a rickety bus to Grandma Emmeline's farm. Shirley spotted her grandmother right away. The thin West Indian woman stood tall as a reed as she looked quite serious business. Island life was nothing like city living. The days were hot as an oven, And every night, Shirley heard an animal concert of chirps, clucks, and moos. Her new home had something Shirley had never seen, an outhouse. Mother stayed for a few months to make sure the girls were settled in. Then she had to get back to Brooklyn to help Papa. The day Mother left, everyone's face was wet with tears. Grandmother Emmeline's house was stocked with love, rules, and chores. Fetch the well water, feed the animals, graze the cows. When they finished, Shirley and her sisters and her cousins enjoyed a special treat. They raced to the beach, ran through the sand, and jumped into clear blue water. To Shirley, the ocean water felt like warm magic. The local school was a one-room building with more than 100 children ages 4 to 11. The teachers were strict and punished students who did not behave. Shirley was a fast learner. She could read and write before she turned 5. Barbados was filled with people with brown skin like Shirley's. She saw teachers, preachers, and shopkeepers taking care of island business. Seeing them, Shirley understood that when she grew up, she could take charge and get things done too. Seven years went by. Mother and Papa were still struggling to earn money. The Great Depression of 1930 made it hard for them to find steady jobs. But no matter, Mother wanted her girls back home. In 1934, the year Shirley turned 10, she and her sisters moved back to Brooklyn and a different life. The city was crowded with automobiles, tall buildings, fast-moving people, and a confusing maze of streets. During the icicle-cold winters, Shirley shivered, thinking about the warm Barbados sunshine. At her new school, Shirley got a sad surprise. Instead of starting 6th grade, she was put back into 4th grade. Shirley's schooling in Barbados had been excellent, but the teachers in Brooklyn said she didn't know enough U.S. history. Shirley was upset and embarrassed and bored. Sometimes when the teacher wasn't looking, Shirley threw spitballs and snapped rubber bands at the younger kids in her class. Once her teacher realized why Shirley misbehaved, the school gave her a tutor. In time, Shirley learned all the history she needed to catch up with her classmates. And the pages are stuck. Education was important in the Hill home, the St. Hill home. The girls made regular trips to the library to borrow books. When holidays came, Shirley was sure to receive a book as a present. Every evening, the family dinner table came alive. Papa talked first. Shirley listened closely and asked questions as he discussed world events. Papa read 3 newspapers every day. He was full of information. When Papa's friends stopped by, Shirley stayed up late and listened through the bedroom door. The men talked for hours about world leaders and politics. Papa said everybody should be treated the same: poor, rich, black, white. Papa's words stirred something inside Shirley. She started paying more attention to current events. In high school, Shirley earned top grades and was accepted at several colleges. She chose Brooklyn College, just a subway ride away from home. The school was bigger than any she had attended. There were so many students. Shirley loved her classes. Her brain buzzed with new information about other countries, foreign languages, and different cultures. She joined the Harriet Tubman Society, a club where she learned more about Black history, and nobody was surprised when Shirley signed up for the debate team. She could outtalk anybody. After her schoolwork was done, Shirley enjoyed going to parties and dancing. Shirley wanted to use her education to make the country and the world better for everyone. But how? Her favorite teacher, Professor Warsoff, knew Shirley was a great debater. He suggested she give politics a try. Shirley had doubts. She loved children, so she decided to be a school teacher instead of a politician. She would make a difference by helping children. After she finished college in 1946, Shirley had a hard time finding a job. Most doors were closed to her because she was Black and she was a woman. Plus, she was very short. "Don't judge me by my size," Shirley insisted at an interview to be a nursery school teacher. "Give me a chance." Shirley got the job. During the day, Shirley worked with children. In the evening, she worked with community groups. Shirley noticed that people with power and money didn't seem to care about folks who were poor. This bothered her. She remembered how it felt to be poor, so she spoke up and tried to make a difference for people who didn't have power or money. One time, Shirley encouraged the women in a local group to stand up to the men and demand respect. Another time, she noticed that the officials in charge of a meeting were ignoring everyone waiting in line to ask questions. Shirley rushed to the front and made sure everyone was allowed to talk. In the middle of all this work, Shirley found love. In 1949, she married Katheryn Chisholm, a private investigator. He was handsome and smart and crazy about Shirley. In 1950s and 1960s, Shirley joined many organizations. Some local leaders and politicians didn't like her ideas. They called her a troublemaker because she stood up for women and people of color. But the people who needed help were glad Shirley was on their side, fighting to make sure they were treated fairly. In 1964, Shirley's heart told her it was time to step into politics. She had a gift. People listened when she talked. Her words motivated them into action. Shirley decided to take a chance and run for the New York State Assembly. She won. After Shirley became an assemblywoman, she worked to help the people of New York. She worked to pass laws to help sick people get the medicine they needed. She worked to make sure landlords kept the heat on in the winter. She worked to help people find jobs and to raise pay for workers, including those who cleaned houses like her mother. She worked to help poor students pay for college. Shirley didn't say or do things just to be popular. She fought for what she believed was right, not what was easy. She followed Grandmother Emmeline's advice to always speak the truth. Oops, the pictures. 4 years later, Shirley decided to run for U.S. Congress. She promised to help people all across the country. Some of the men in Congress tried to keep Shirley out. They scolded her and said women didn't belong in politics. One of her opponents called her a little school teacher. Many people said they would never vote for a woman. Shirley dusted off the mean talk. She kept meeting with people and asking them to vote for her. Her campaign slogan was, "Unbought and unbossed." Shirley's hard work paid off. In 1968, she was the first Black woman elected to Congress. In the House of Representatives, Shirley kept her promise. She worked for laws that helped women, children, and students, poor people, farm workers, Native people, and others who were often pushed aside. She fought for health care. She spoke up for military veterans. She spoke out against war. While in Congress, Shirley gave many speeches, and people of every color and background liked her ideas for change. But Shirley wanted to take her message to an even bigger audience. So in 1972, she decided to seek the highest political office of the United States. Shirley was the first Black person, Democrat or Republican, to run for president. Shirley's campaign was full of ups and downs. Although many people helped her and followed the Chisholm Trail, their support wasn't enough. Shirley didn't win the nomination, but her work paved the way for the future, for the first Black president of the United States, and one day the first woman president. Shirley Anita St. Hill Chisholm opened the door to history. So then comes the afterword. So that's the end of the book. And there's a picture, an actual photograph of Shirley, several here. I hope you enjoyed hearing this book as much as I enjoyed reading it. And if you want to read it again, I'm sure it's available in the library. And if it isn't, if you ask enough, they'll get it for you. Thank you.